There's so many incredible JRPGs on the PS1, it's hard to pick and choose which are the best, but here I am trying to do just that. Many of the games now have entirely new ways to play them, including remasters, remakes, and even HD mods from fans. So even if you already know these games, stay tuned because you might find a new way to play. So let's talk about the best PS1 JRPGs. Suikoden is one of the best series, and it just so happens that Suikoden 2 is the best game in that series. Suikoden 2 has all of the series staples, 108 characters, big story battles between armies, and a grounded story with politics, intrigue, and friends fighting friends for their beliefs. This game really took me to another place when I was younger, and it still holds up to this day. Building up your base by recruiting new characters is super satisfying. I can't praise it enough because even though it has so many characters, it still manages some good characterization, especially in characters like Flick and Victor. And luckily enough, it does have an HD remaster that just came out recently, so it's available on modern consoles and PC, bundled with the first game, which is also a lot of fun, so go play it right now if you haven't. Chrono Cross may not be the follow-up to Chrono Trigger people thought it would be, but if you really look at it, it's a great game. It deserves a lot of credit for doing a lot of interesting things. The music, the setting, the parallel worlds, it might be a bit confusing, but there's something about Chrono Cross that is really special. It's one of the few JRPGs where you can make choices that affect things that happen, with multiple endings and different characters that can join you depending on what you choose. There is a modern edition of Chrono Cross available called the Radical Dreamers edition that is on Steam and modern consoles. Apparently they've fixed some of the issues people had with it. They made battles 60 FPS, but outside of battle it is 30. There is a mod or the Special K fix that fixes that, but it isn't necessarily a simple drag and drop, so keep that in mind. With the mods, the Steam version becomes the best version to play. It was hard for me to choose between Breath of Fire 4 and 3, but Breath of Fire 4 does some things that are really cool that make it a great game. It has some really great themes, complex characters that you really learn about over the course of the story. It's hard to emphasize this enough without actually spoiling, so you'll just have to trust me when I say this is one you'll want to play through to the end. It also has the dragon transformation system that the series is known for. The visuals are just incredible. This is definitely some of the best sprite work out there, with the characters and the enemies standing out. Breath of Fire 4 may not have a remaster, but it is on a modern platform. You can get the game on GOG. It's one of their games in the game preservation program. This one is a JRPG you shouldn't skip over, and at $10 without any discount, it's an easy recommend. One of the best Final Fantasy games and one of the best JRPGs ever, we have Final Fantasy IX. This one hits on all angles with the classic beauty of Final Fantasy and is one of the last classic Final Fantasy games, having all of the systems that people loved in Final Fantasy. You've got airships, a large world map to explore with secrets, fun mini-games like the card game Tetramaster, and a great cast of characters. It's a personal highlight for me in the Final Fantasy series. A lot of us are hoping for a remake, and there have been unconfirmed rumors, but for now, the best way to play the game is through Steam and using the Moguri mod. Moguri mod adds HD textures, brings up the quality of all the backgrounds, adds a bunch of quality of life features like the ability to change the speed of battle, a must-have mod if you're going to play the game in current year. The easiest way to get it and the mod is to use the Steam version and download Moguri through their website. It's a very easy install, so make sure to try it out. One of the greatest JRPG stories of all time, and one of the only games on this list that has no way to play it on modern platforms, Xenogears. Xenogears is infamous for having an incredible first CD, and then on the second, the story is a mess of backgrounds with text, occasional battles, and short dungeons. Even so, it's consistently rated as one of the best PS1 JRPGs, so that should tell you the quality of the game is there, despite them having run out of support to fully complete the game as they had envisioned. It really is an epic story from the same developers who made Xenosaga and Xenoblade Chronicles, so if you enjoyed either of those, this should be a no-brainer. Xenogears is a bit more of a traditional JRPG that also adds giant mechs into the mix for you to fight using. There's an ongoing mod that aims at improving and adding some quality of life called Xenogears Perfect Works, but it isn't completed yet. I'd probably still recommend it though because it lowers encounter rate and it speeds up the text, something that I definitely think is necessary. This one is begging for a remake so we can finally get the story as it was originally intended with all the cut content added. It could be a mess to try and figure out how to do it since Monolith primarily makes games from Nintendo consoles, but I'm sure there's a way to do it. Make it happen, Square. You can pick up a copy on PS1. Unfortunately, it has not become available on modern consoles since the PS3. The Lunar series are some of the best games on the PS1. My personal favorite is Lunar 2: Eternal Blue. The big draw with this one is the story and the interactions between Hiro and Lucia. Lucia changes a lot over the course of the story, and Lunar reflects this not only in her interactions, but also in the gameplay. You can't manually control Lucia, and where at first she's cold and only attacks, over time she starts healing you. It's a beautiful, heartwarming story with lots of fun twists and turns, highly recommended for fans of romance games and general JRPG fans. Now there's an HD version that has been brought to modern platforms with upgrades to the visuals. This is now the definitive version and is available pretty much everywhere. The obvious follow-up to Lunar is Grandia, which not only has some of the same developers, but is also amazing in its own right. The story follows Justin and Fina as they make their way across the world. It feels like a real adventure. There's plenty of interesting things that happen along the way and characters to meet. Much like Lunar, the characters are a big strength here. What Grandia adds to that is a unique combat system that a lot of people praise, where the timing of your attacks and the ability to delay the enemy turns plays a big factor in your success. It's a system with a lot of fun things to play with. Grandia was part of an HD remaster that got brought to modern platforms along with its sequel. This port isn't necessarily the best, but it is the easiest to get. There are also versions on the PS1 and the Sega Saturn. Some people think that the Sega Saturn is the way to go, so it might be worth giving it a shot if you have the ability to do that. Otherwise, you can get Grandia HD on all modern consoles and PC. Star Ocean: The Second Story is probably the best game in the Star Ocean series, though you could debate Star Ocean till the end of time. And it is one of the best PS1 JRPGs. There's a lot of reasons for that. It has two really good protagonists with split perspectives, so you can choose one at the beginning and see things a bit differently throughout the game. There's also the private actions, which are a bit like skits in the Tales series. You have to be at specific locations to trigger private actions, and it can affect the characters that you get and even the ending of the game. It also has a really cool skill and crafting system where you level up all of these different skills and crafting skills, and it can affect your character's stats. You can craft completely broken items early in the game, so it's just fun to play with. Star Ocean: The Second Story does have a newer version, Star Ocean: The Second Story R, and it is the definitive version, adding a ton of features, making it way easier to play through with a lot of quality of life added. Probably the benchmark for this sort of HD 2D remake, so go play that. It's on Switch, PS5, and PC. Up next, we have The Legend of Dragoon, which is a really fun game and kind of a bit overlooked by Sony, really. You would think that considering how well it did, it may have gotten a sequel or even a remaster by now. It even topped the sales charts on the PlayStation Network when it released on PlayStation Classics and stayed in the top 5 for months. So, needless to say, it's a good game. It has timed button presses for doing combos, dragon forms for characters that do powerful attacks, and it has a big epic story with a lot of great characters. It had some of the highest production at that point in time, especially for a non-Square game who had ruled that particular market. Now, since Sony hasn't given it love, doesn't mean the fans haven't. There is a PC port that has been in production for a while called Severed Chains. It has a ton of cool features, including upscaled visuals at 4K 60 FPS, better quality sound, models, animation, faster loading, you can save anywhere. And they're working to add even more than that. Some of this is slated for the 3.0 release, which hopefully is coming soon, and when it does, it will be fantastic. Otherwise, it's only available on PS1 and through the PS5 Premium Plus subscription or digital purchase. The last game on the list is, of course, Final Fantasy VII. I'll never forget what it felt like to come out of Midgar and into that big world and run around only to be eaten by a giant snake. There are so many cool things going on in Final Fantasy VII, with one of the best casts in any JRPG, one of the best casts of villains too. It has a bunch of extra things to do that are a lot of fun, and that simple Final Fantasy combat to bring it all together. It was a masterpiece back then, still is now. Now you can get an entirely remade version of the game, though as of right now, the third part is still on the way, with a huge amount of additions, very different gameplay, and expands the world in interesting ways. I do think it feels better to have played the original first, but you can just play the remake if you're not a fan of old school JRPGs, though the original mostly holds up. The only thing that doesn't really hold up is the super polygonal character models. But even that can be fixed with mods, of which there are a ton, some that completely change how the original game looks with new models, HD backgrounds. Just download the Seventh Heaven mod manager and pick up the mods you want to use. You can pick from a list. So the best version is either the modded version or through the remakes, especially on the PC through Steam. Alright, we made it through to the end of the list. I realized that the PS1 has a ridiculously large amount of great JRPGs, and as such, I'll almost certainly be coming back to it to talk about other types of JRPGs for the system. For example, action RPGs, Japan-only games, fan-translated JRPGs, and more. Maybe some real obscure stuff, so make sure to subscribe for that and for my other coverage of all kinds of different RPGs. If you made it to the end, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching.